Episode, we have Trey Dyson on the podcast. Trey is the hitting coach at North Greenville University. Trey gets into his own background in this podcast and talks about his own journey in baseball, and he spent some time in baseball and actually out of baseball for a while too. Did some TV broadcasting. And then he also talks about Division II college baseball. He talks about how they go about developing players at North Greenville and what they're looking for when they're out recruiting, how important being a competitor is. So it's a great episode if you're a high school player or if you're a parent of a high school player. Here we go, Trey Dyson. We now welcome onto the podcast Trey Dyson. Trey, appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Patrick.
So, I know you've got a little bit of a unique journey in coaching. You weren't the typical graduate from college and then get right into coaching right away. Like, you played some professional baseball and then you went into the real world. And it sounds like where you just burn out from the real world and you're just like, man, I want to go back to doing what I do best is in coach and be a part of baseball.
Well, I loved baseball. I loved the team aspect of baseball, or just really any sport. As a kid, it was just something that I was passionate about. But I was also like a really good student and very ambitious. Wanting to start a family and wanting to make some money and that kind of stuff. So when me and my wife got married, kind of during the beginning stages of my professional baseball career, she was like telling me that I should go into coaching and stuff, but I wasn't hearing any of it because I wanted to go make money, right away. So after professional baseball was done, I went out into the real world, got a banking job, did really, really well. And I'm a very competitive person. So when I was playing professional baseball, making $500 a month in the minor leagues, my friends were like starting their careers. They were starting to make money, buying houses and that kind of stuff. And I felt like I was almost getting left behind in that aspect. So I wanted to get out in the real world, kind of start a career in the business world. And it was great. It was a good move. I played like 4 years in three different organizations with the Royals, the Indians, and the Dodgers. Then I got into the banking world, did really good, started a family, was doing great. And then I just kind of got burnt out and just watching. In the meantime, I was doing games with the South Carolina baseball on the SEC Plus network. So watching it all the time and just being around it. And of course, thinking you're the smartest guy in the room, like I would have done this here and that there. And this guy needs to change his batting stance or needs to change his load and so it was overwhelming, the passion inside to get into coaching. And that's kind of what prompted that change.
And for those listening, Trey's humble. He graduated and was the SEC Male Scholar of the Year in 2002. I mean, so this cat's pretty smart. I mean, he's not just saying that. The data backs it up with his GPA. So you were doing some TV stuff, University of South Carolina. First of all, what was that like? I'm sure that's a lot harder than people think.
Well, I once again, loving sports my whole life. Loving all parts of sports, including the broadcast. I would grow up pretending like I was broadcasting and stuff like that. And when I was in college, it's at South Carolina. I was in South Carolina from 99 to 02. And back then, we had the Fox Sports, like regional networks, would cover some SEC games from time to time. It's nothing like it is now, but I can still remember Dave Neal. Dave Neal's made a great career in the industry. Like whenever the Fox Sports crew would come around, it was like unbelievable because we were going to actually be on TV. Now these kids, they're on TV every single game. But back then it was a big deal because if it wasn't the College World Series, it was very hard to get on TV for college baseball. And so we would become friends with Dave Neal. Mike Morgan, who's actually been working for ESPN for a while, he was actually our radio guy for a year or two. he was amazing, and he's gone on to have a great career with ESPN, and he's worked with the Braves some as well. But we would always mess around with the broadcasters. We get on the camera, we put the headsets on, and that was something that just kind of came natural to me too, the whole broadcasting thing. And it was a lot of fun. And if you can talk, it's pretty easy. But like the back and forth stuff, the whole production that goes into it, it's really, really cool. It's really, really fun.
Yeah,
So it
that's
was it was a good experience.
yeah, definitely. It definitely looks like a ton of fun. So okay, so you're doing that, and then what was the transition from that into coaching? Did you go North Greenville right away? Like what was that transition period like?
So I was still working kind of in the real world. Um, and then a buddy of mine, Banks Faulkner, who was he's a really respected high school coach in our area. We had a mutual friend. My wife and one of her friends were, they were mutual friends. So Banks one day asked me to come out to a baseball practice at Blythewood High School, and I was like, yeah, no, I'd love to come out there and do it. And then so I went out there, and like I was kind of hooked right away. Like it was really all I could think about. And so that day, kind of the rest is almost history from a coaching standpoint, because I ended up coaching with him for like 2 years. We had a lot of success, and then that's when Landon at North Greenville. Obviously, I kept up with Landon in North Greenville, always pulling really, really hard for him. Um, he had a guy leaving to go somewhere else who had been with him kind of from the beginning. And I went up there and I talked to him, and it ended up working out. And that's when I went to North Greenville, because I knew I wanted to get into college baseball. And so I'll be starting my 4th year here with North Greenville here coming up.
What was your initial thoughts first year coaching college baseball?
Well, it was it was awesome. I definitely learned a lot, but I was kind of like, he already had stuff like really set up so well. Already had kind of a good coaching staff in place, that it was more of a kind of try to find my role. Like I was technically the hitting coach, but Landon would also work with some of the hitters. It's kind of like we have a lot of very talented guys there that coach. So we all kind of help with kind of every different aspect. Um, but just getting in there, kind of trying to develop a routine with hitters, trying to get the players to trust you. You're coming in there. They don't know you from anybody. Maybe a couple people know you from kind of your career at South Carolina or whatever, and being in high school baseball for a couple years. But the majority of kids don't know you, especially the older kids. They don't know you. So getting them to kind of trust you was probably the most challenging part, at least my first year. And over the past couple years, that's just gotten better and way better. And now it's much easier to kind of build that trust. Or you've got to have that trust aspect for it to work, because if like a player's got like 1 foot in and 1 foot out, or if they think you're a clown, or if they think they don't know what you're talking about, it's just never going to work. Um, so, so, and you know what? Not everyone's made for everybody. Like certain aspects of coaching, like if they got it figured out and they're doing just fine, I'll flip them balls, all day long, or feed them balls in the machine until I'm about to pass out without ever giving any instruction. And I'm okay with that too. But the guys that want instruction, that really trust you, that like, the way you communicate, you can make great strides with them. That's not that. uh but the other kids, like if they think they got it figured out on their own, we're fine with that too at North Greenville. So it's definitely a unique situation. We certainly don't force people to do things a certain way. But we are definitely there to help them if they want if they want the help.
You mentioned trust and building trust, and how that was the hardest thing when you first started coaching. Like if for a coach out there listening right now, how can they go about doing that? Like what did you find that worked, that helped you get over the hump and really build trust with players?
Well, when you kind of first start out, you want to kind of come in like that. If you're a competitor, like I know I am, you want to come in and kind of shock the world with your knowledge and with your approach and with your talking and stuff like that. But not everyone's the same. Like one kid might love that, another kid might not, might think you're an idiot, and you just have to have that awareness and kind of that feel to understand, to put yourself in that player's shoes and say, okay, if I was this kid right here and this big old, new guy comes blasting in saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, it might not come across so well, especially if they've been doing things a certain way for their whole life. So I would just say be patient. And I love to just ask a ton of questions. And even with guys I work with on a daily basis, if we had them on the phone right now, I could ask them 5 different questions and they'd be able to answer. They would all answer the same exact way, because of what we talk about. But asking questions to me is really important, because if they can answer questions instead of being feeling like they're being told to do something, if you can make it their idea, um, I've seen a lot of success kind of come from that. So I like to ask tons of questions.
I like that. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that too. I really like that. How long is a typical practice for you guys in the fall?
Um, well, we practice very hard. There's 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 kind of different scheduling, like with the rules and everything, with the amount of time that we're allowed to practice. So like in the beginning, it's kind of short practices, especially kind of when they're getting back to school, kind of like more individualized practices. But then we start getting after it, kind of once they've gotten settled into school and all that kind of stuff. And it's basically as close as you can get to like a full season within the rules, with the time allotments and that kind of stuff. But our players probably we believe in playing baseball too and not just practicing, so we play tons of inter squad games. And our hitters, the goal is to try to get them 75 plate appearances in a fall. We're not always, we don't always reach that, but some guys can get up to that, and that's kind of the goal. So we practice a ton, we practice hard, we're very competitive. That's what makes us so good there. And it's the fall, especially at North Greenville, it's such a beautiful place. It's in the mountains in Tigerville, South Carolina. It's beautiful. The weather's great, and the baseball is excellent. So we have a wonderful time in the fall, and a lot of things get ironed out in the fall.
How many players are on the roster?
We had I think right around 40-ish or so this year, give or take, which is great for inter squads. Sometimes it becomes challenging during the year, especially when you have good players up and down your roster and not just like roster fillers. It's great for scrimmages and inter squads. It can sometimes get challenging once the season starts, because there's only 9 positions, but guys are constantly getting opportunities. They're constantly getting a chance to prove themselves. Even during the spring, when we're playing games, guys that don't get at bats, or if they don't get innings on the mound, they'll go out during the week. We do a lot of kind of simulated scrimmages and stuff during the week, especially with guys that don't get at bats like a lot. So guys are constantly getting opportunities to have live at bats to show what they can do to kind of earn a spot into the lineup. But what was the question again, Patrick? I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just, again, just kind of curious about just what we were talking about when it comes to, talked about the fall and like what the practice is like, and then just kind of like overall how many players are on the roster.
Okay.
And then I guess the second piece I was going to add to that, because you'd mentioned playing time and hitters. You got 40 hitters, especially during the year. And how that's pretty tough, I'm sure, for some guys. How do you handle those conversations with those hitters? Like, what are you telling them?
My big thing is just keep the faith. To these guys, like one of the things we talk about a lot is one swing can change your career, and it's so true. So like you can complain and feel sorry for yourself, or you can be the guy that says, you know what, in that next live at bat I get, I'm gonna hit a home run to the big part of the field, and then when I get up again, I'm gonna hit a double. Like it's so competitive now. There's so many really good players out there that it's hard. It's really hard to get playing time, really, kind of wherever you're at, and especially if you're at a really top level program like North Greenville. You will constantly get opportunities. You got to constantly keep the faith, and you've got to understand that one swing of the bat can change your career. And it's not always fair. Baseball's not always fair. Like, of course, it's easy to work out of slumps and stuff when your name's written in the lineup every day. But sometimes life's not fair. Like, you're not going to be in the lineup every day for certain guys. And if you're not, don't complain about it. But when you get in there, do something about it. That's something that I would have when I talk about this stuff, I'm kind of talking to myself back when I played, because I was kind of a fringe guy back in the day, a lot of times where and I would a lot of times go the wrong way with my thinking and start feeling sorry for myself and start wanting to blame somebody else. Oh, well, if I was so and so and I had a chance to be in the lineup every day, I'd be doing this and I'd be doing that. To me, that's the wrong way to look at it. Like, you can think like that if you want to, but you're not gonna be able to sleep well at night, and you're gonna build up a lot of anger inside. To me, that's just not healthy. If I could do it back over again, I would just try to stay as positive as I could, knowing that one swing could change my career. So I know I'm kind of rambling on here. Do you want me to stop talking?
No,
But
that's good. I love the one swing can change your career, because you're 100% right. And it could be playing time. It could be a scout at the game watching a kid. It could, I mean, there's so many things. It could be a kid's in a slump and he gets a jam shot and it's a hit and that gets him going, right? And then it's just
right,
taking off from there. And I also like how you talked about right there of feeling sorry for yourself. And I don't know why I thought of this when you were talking about that, but I'm in Cincinnati, and the Reds are doing pretty well, and Ellie De La Cruz, who's the number one prospect in all of baseball, and there's a guy who could have felt sorry for himself. He was signed for $65,000. Like, he was signed for nothing in regards to like how good he was. Like, what if he would have complained that he wasn't, one of the big bonus babies or one of the, you know what I mean? And so there's so many different stories of guys who were overlooked or didn't get the playing time. And they just, like, to what you said, they kept the faith. They just kept going and kept pushing. And eventually you get your chance, and you just got to make the most of it. And that's all you can do, really.
exactly. So Patrick, last year we won the national championship for Division II baseball. It was amazing.
Congratulations, by the way, on that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very hard to make it to the World Series in Division II baseball. It's not like D1. So D1, basically the best teams get in a regional, and then the best, whoever wins the regional gets to the super regional for a chance to go to the World Series. In D2, it's based on regions. So there's 8 regions, and there will be one representative from each region that will make the College World Series. So, like, we have a very, very tough region, and but only one team out of our region has the opportunity to make it to the World Series. So we're here, in South Carolina, so I always just compare it to South Carolina and Clemson, which have been in the College World Series multiple times, and that could never happen in Division II baseball, because only one of those teams would be able to go. So the reason why I'm saying that is because it's really hard to make it to the World Series. So we made it in back-to-back years. Last year, we were fortunate to win it. It was an amazing season. And to the whole keeping the faith thing, we had a 3-time All-American catcher last year, who now is the all-time record holder in D2 for home runs and RBIs. His name's John Michael Fail. He was an amazing player. He just finished up. He's playing with Billings right now in the Pioneer League. We're hoping that he gets drafted. He's a great player. For whatever reason, he hasn't gotten drafted yet, which is a shame because he rakes and he's a great catcher. But he got hurt in the conference tournament last year, and this guy is like a rock in the lineup. And so we had a kid who was a switch hitting freshman catcher last year who really didn't play hardly ever, like maybe 1 or 2 starts during the year. He hit a huge home run in the conference tournament that helped us win the conference tournament. And he got 1 start in the College World Series. He was 3 for 3 with a huge home run in that game. And that's a kid who could have complained, and he did complain a little bit. I mean, to be honest, like, of course, like you're not going to be happy all the time, but he just had a great disposition about himself, and he kept believing in the midst of catching the thousands of bullpens that he would do in between, during practice and stuff like that. And we had another kid, Bryce Roddy. He's a freshman last year. He was the guy that gave the balls to the umpire during the games. And he was just so much, and me and him talked a ton during the year. He was like my buddy in the dugout, standing up there beside the guy giving out the balls and stuff. And we'd be talking about the game and talking trash about some of the players here and there, just like some good, fun dugout banter. And he'd always be like, well, I could do that and I could do this and I should be out there playing. And I'm like, Roddy, good. Like, I'm glad you feel that way. Now, when you get in the game, what are you going to do? You're going to strike out, or are you going to do all this big talk that you're talking about right now? We constantly have those talks, and every time he got in, to his credit, he played hard. He hit the ball hard. And then what happened was, because he kept that faith and because he kind of, was always like, playing hard and competing hard whenever he got his chances, he found himself in the last inning of a super regional against Columbus State, a great program. And he got a walk-off hit in the super regional, which was huge. I mean, so it was just like, we got all kinds of stories like that, pitchers having great performances and stuff kind of out of nowhere. But that stuff doesn't just happen. It happens like it's a process, and it's like a constant belief and a constant keeping the faith, constant grinding, being ready for that opportunity to give yourself the best shot when that opportunity comes.
Yeah, it's almost like aggressive patience, where like you're continuing to work, you're continuing to be aggressive, you're keeping the faith, but at the same time you're patient, because you can't you can't force opportunities and things like that. Who's the kid you have on your Twitter? Pat Monteith is
That Monty.
Yeah. So I was looking at his like kind of swing transformation. I mean, that's incredible. I want the first 3 or 4 swings that you have. I'll put the link up in the show notes. People want to check it out. But the first 3 to 4 swings on on the video, I guess I don't know if that was last year, a couple years ago, but man, just was not moving very well. I mean, didn't have much space. I mean, his bat path wasn't very good, and sounds like maybe it looks like you guys put together like a little like hover move on the lower half, and the numbers are just crazy. I mean, he just took off 19 bombs. And take me through that. What happened there?
So, like, remember, I was like a first year hitting coach his freshman year. And so I didn't really like go full bore that year. I kind of laying back in the cut, almost letting guys kind of do whatever they want to do. Plus, Landon, our head coach, works with the hitters as well. But Pat was a guy who struck out a ton, but was super competitive and super athletic. And watching that video, you can see that he's just kind of pushing at the ball. He's trying to force contact. He's just fighting and grinding for anything he can get up there. And this year we found, at least I feel like I came up with something that that really worked well for a couple of the guys, including Pat. And we call it hitting for a long time. Hitting for a long time. So what that essentially is back when I played and stuff, we were taught to kind of, throw the hands at the ball, pull the knob to the ball, which would create a lot of pushing action. Now, it would work a lot of times, but it was it was more of like, I call it a one hitter, meaning that I was only ready to hit one time. Like my foot had to come down at the perfect time. I had to have perfect timing and all this stuff, and that I could only launch my bat one time. And if the ball was there and everything synced up, great, I could hit it really hard. But if I was a little off here or there, I wouldn't be able to pull the trigger. If I did, it would be kind of weak contact. So once we kind of understood kind of how the back leg works with hitting and the back hip and all that kind of stuff, and obviously there's so much information out there now. Like any old dad on the couch can be a great hitting coach if they have enough time to look. A lot of people would disagree with that statement, but I mean, I think that there's so much information out there right now that if you're teaching the old hands down to the ball kind of thing, it's just, that's not what hitters do. Like, you got to get behind the ball. You got to get on playing with the ball. For us, you got to hit for a long time. And so you could see, and I know I'm probably not making much sense to you. I'd have to like kind of show you with a bat or something like that what I'm actually talking about. But if you watch those beginning videos with Pat, you can see that he's just kind of almost lunging at the ball and just kind of pushing to the ball.
Pushing, yeah.
And so to me, I call that a one hitter, meaning he's only hitting one time. And now with the whole hovering and controlling his backside, now he's able to hit for a long time, which is what we call hitting for a long time, where he's in a good spot now early, where he's loading up and he gets up early. And as he's moving forward, he's trying to keep everything back. And then, but in the meantime, he's able to hit, like if it's a fastball, ideally he's going to land and cut it loose. If it's an off speed pitch, he's just going to continue to hit for a longer period of time. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's what jumped out to me too when I watched the video. Was just he was just pushy, really pushy with his hands. And I'll be honest, Trey, when I watched the video for the first time, like for some players, you can see like, oh, they have the athleticism in there. Like if they just made a couple tweaks, like man, they could really take off. His first few swings, it wasn't like I really could envision this kid taking off. You know what I mean? I couldn't see it. And so it's like credit to you and obviously him for all the work that he put in. But that's what's, I think it was so cool about the development process. And I'm sure that took way longer than people realize for that all to come together. And I'm sure you guys were working like crazy and he was working like crazy. And I mean, like, how long does it take in your experience, like for him, that transformation? How long did that take to come about where it was looking the way it looks now?
It's like it's a constant process. You're right. And to tell you the truth, like I'm still learning as a hitting coach on like what works. So I knew what we wanted, what it needed to look like, but maybe I wasn't the best at communicating it. Now I feel like I'm really good at communicating with the guys what it actually means. So to answer your question, 3 years and counting, he's still getting better. And the remarkable thing about it, and the reason why I know that this philosophy works, is Pat went from like a guy who strikes out a ton swinging at bad pitches. He does not swing at pitches out of the zone anymore. He led the nation in walks this year, D2. 59 walks, only 29 Ks. Can you believe that?
That's huge.
Like, that's unbelievable.
That's when you know you can hit.
With 19 bombs. So it's not like he's like, just like a Punch and Judy leadoff hitter that's walking a ton. He's driving the ball and he's got total command of the zone. He was in the MLB draft league this summer. He's draft eligible. To me, he's an absolute no-brainer for being drafted. He runs a 6.65, 6.7, 60. He's got an absolute cannon. He's like, to me, a pro's dream. Plus, he's like the greatest kid you'll ever meet. He's like he's just a great teammate. He works with all the young kids. He's he still cleans up the bus and stuff, and he's a junior. He's always doing stuff to help out other people. Um, I really hope he gets a shot to get drafted. We think he's going to get drafted. Um, Whoever drafts him, even if he never gets a hit ever in professional baseball, he's going to create value for the organization for all the things that he brings to the table. But I think he's going to keep getting better. And I think he's got a real shot. I think he's got a real shot. So fingers crossed, Pat Monteith.
I tell you what, anytime you have a recruit that you're recruiting, I would just send them that video and being like, just this is what we do here. We take guys who weren't very good hitters, who had terrible mechanics, and we make them monsters. Like that's what we do at North Greenville.
So, hey, Patrick, you're speaking my language, man. And you're not the first person who's told me that, but because you can clearly see the difference, right? And it's just the stark contrast between what he used to do versus now what he's doing. And once again, that comes from trust. That comes from trust. And Pat trusted me. Maybe Pat, it probably took him a little while, but we became, in fact, he can tell you the day when he believed in me, that I knew that he thought I knew what I was doing. And from that day forward, not only has he just put all his trust in me, but he's also encouraged the other players to listen to me. And you can't get a better endorsement than someone like him saying, "Hey, this guy might be weird sometimes. He might ask you to do some stuff that you might think is stupid, but if you listen and you kind of buy into it, I think this guy could really help you." And so the kid's just an amazing kid. And I hope that he's going to get a chance. And I think if he does, he's going to really, really take off.
What was that? You said there was a moment that he trusted you. What happened in that
So,
moment?
well, you know how we were talking earlier about media and how like I like the media aspect
Yeah.
of things, and what a wonderful job you're doing marketing yourself, Patrick,
Thank you.
on Twitter, with the newsletter and just being consistent with it. That was one of my goals when I went to North Greenville, was to try to get more people actually paying attention to North Greenville, because there's so many good players there, but a lot of times they don't get covered. So I went in with kind of a Twitter strategy to try to do some skits and stuff like that to try to get more people interested in actually following what we're doing there. And one night at beautiful Ray and B. Dillard Field in Tigerville, South Carolina, it was like foggy. We had just finished like a scrimmage, and the scene was incredible. Like, it was like fog. It looked like it was like we were in a swamp or something like that. And Pat has a great look. Like, and back when he was a freshman, he had this long hair that was coming out and stuff. And I was like, "Pat, hey, stick around after practice. I got an idea for a video." You know how people do like the countdown, like 9 days away from opening day or
Yeah.
whatever. Okay. And they show a picture of a kid. Well, Pat was number 5. And so we did a 5 days from opening day, and I made this video. If you know anything about, quality filming, it's not very quality. Okay. Like, I am kind of a boomer when it comes to like Zoom. Like, I know I probably look bad on this. I don't even, but I'm pretty creative with ideas and stuff. And so I made this really cool video for him. I'll have to share it with you.
Okay.
And it was really cool. And for someone like me to do that, like, he's like, "Dang, that old guy could do that." That's what sold him. And
That's
it was
awesome.
a great little video. So we've had a great relationship ever since. Pat also had to sit out his freshman year. He was a guy that was on the bench for the first 20 games until he cracked in, to the lineup. But once again, there's a guy that's going to get drafted, hopefully, that was not even playing at our D2 school as a freshman.
Wow.
that like I said, we've got a really loaded roster, so it's not easy to play as a freshman nowadays. No, really, no matter where you go.
So speaking of Pat, when you're out recruiting, what are you looking for? Because clearly there's a guy right there who maybe when you first saw him, it would be hard to envision him being someone who would be potentially drafted someday, much less getting to play on a regular basis, which makes scouting so incredibly difficult. But like what are some of the things that you're looking for in order to identify the next Pat?
Well, you're looking for competitive players. Landon likes bigger guys a lot of times. Like he likes to pass the bus test, if you will. But we also got plenty of small guys too. But when you've got a guy that can run, that can throw, he takes a lot. Like he does a lot with like kind of professional baseball scouting. So if a guy like has some tools, but maybe not be polished all the way, he's but very competitive. We're looking for guys like that. So one of the former assistant coaches that's now actually at UNC Pembroke, I think gets to take credit for discovering Pat. Landon, of course, probably closed the deal with him, but Ryan Brown at UNC Pembroke saw Pat playing at one of these games, one of these summer showcase games or something, and I think he dove into a fence or something and caught a ball or something like that. And that type of stuff just fires us up at North Greenville. And just how hard he played and stuff like that. That's how he kind of located Pat. And then I guess he told Landon about him. This was before I got there, Pat's recruiting process. And I guess the rest is history. So you just we also look at stats. I mean, we take high school stats seriously.
Yeah, you told me that the other day. Well, I've never heard that coach say that to me before.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, honestly. But we like to see people like who actually produce, like, okay, you throw 86, 89 or whatever, 92, like, okay, what are your numbers? Okay. So you're playing all these summer showcases, right? Well, how'd you do? Like that matters to us. And so we like to get background on that and see, like, because at the end of the day, we want to win baseball games, and we pride ourselves on being winners, in everything, every aspect. So if you're not winning very much in high school, well, that might kind of put you a rung below a similar kid who's on a winning program. You know what I mean? So we take that, we do take that seriously, like, or at least we add some value to that. Like how good they are. Like we had this great recruit this year, Brody Fowler, who we just nicknamed Big Game Brody. Brody was a great recruit for us. He was, the typical D1 type of recruit, 6'7", 90 plus miles an hour. But for whatever reason, just none of I guess not too many power fives were on him. And anyways, he came to North Greenville, which I think was the best decision for him. Pitched some huge games for us this year. But in high school, he was a state champion. And not only was he a state champion, he also pitched his best games, or some of his best games, in the postseason. That means a lot to us. And he did the same again this year for us. Like once you're clutch, you're always clutch. At least that's the thing that I tell my kids. That was what I was known for back in college, was being a clutch player. Like if you talk to the geeks nowadays, I don't think there's really such thing as a clutch player, or, when they really look at the numbers, but to us, it's still a thing. And we have guys that can show up in the clutch moments, and that's how to win postseason baseball games. And that's like just so fulfilling to see a kid come through in the clutch. It's like not only great for the program, but it's also just great for them, like as they go through life with like confidence and stuff. To like, if you can do it when it matters the most, you could just take that with you the rest of your life. And we've got a great environment for getting a lot of kids to have some great clutch moments.
Yeah, it's almost like the kid who, once he goes and looks at the lineup and sees that he's fourth, he's like, oh man, I'm hitting cleanup today. And then a runner or a guy gets on second and third base, and he gets up there and he's so nervous. It feels so much pressure because he's thinking to himself, oh man, I'm hitting cleanup. This is what I'm supposed to do. I have to get a hit here. And then he ends up just taking 3 strikes right down the middle. Like that's where the analytics can't quantify what you're talking about, but it's definitely true. Right. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, like, when you've been in that dugout before, that when runners are in score position, you start getting into that later part of the game where everything matters so much. When a certain guy comes up, if kind of the mood of the dugout, like either you're feeling really good or you're kind of feeling like this guy might not have a chance to do anything because he doesn't have the mental toughness or whatever you want to call it. So all of our guys want to be that guy. They want to be that guy. They know they can do it. And once you've done it once, the floodgates will open for you to be able to do it more and more. So, like that kid, that Bryce Roddy kid I talked about earlier that got a walk off last year, if you can't convince him that he's not like the most clutchest player on the planet, like over Paul Goldschmidt or Juan Soto. Like he actually believes that like he's going to get the job done, and that's half the battle.
Right.
Is that belief that you can get the job done, and just different things like psychology, the mental side of the game, all these different things that we talk about on a daily basis. We feel like is working, and so just got to give credit to Landon for what he's done because it's a great place to play baseball, and they're just the results have kind of speak for themselves.
That's such good stuff. Yeah. And I want to highlight what you just said there again, where it's like, just because, maybe you weren't clutch or you haven't been clutch or haven't come up in the big moment doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever. Like you said, Trey, you keep the faith, you keep showing up, you keep having the right mindset, and all it takes is one, and then the floodgates open, as you put it beautifully. So I love that, man. That's such good stuff.
Yeah, you know, because it's and that's what I constantly say to them. Like, for example, we had this kid last year, Josh Sinner, was another kind of Pat Monteith kind of guy. Couldn't hit water if he fell out of his boat his freshman year. He graduated last year, turned into just an amazing center fielder, but was not afraid to swing and miss. He was not afraid to strike out. But we had this moment at Mount Olive 2 years ago, I think, where he hit a walk-off bomb. Anyways, from that moment on, we talked about how clutch he was, even though he might not have been clutch the previous 50 times. Okay. But since that moment, he had so many quality at bats when it mattered the most. He would still strike out, mixing his strikeouts here and there. But when the game was on the line, he would get it done. In fact, he had 2 walk-off hits in the same day the year after that event that I'm talking about.
Wow.
So it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And when you get enough kids believing that they're clutch, and like I said, all it takes is one time to be clutch to be forever clutch. That's how you got to convince yourself. So
That's going to be our soundbite for this episode for your intro right there.
I like that.
That's awesome. Trey, this has been a ton of fun, man. It's been flying by. You've already been on here for almost an hour, but anything else that you want to leave the listeners, or is there a place where they can go follow you or North Greenville? Like where should we lead them to?
I am at Trey Dyson on Twitter.
Okay.
You can find me there. And the North Greenville baseball account is at NGU Baseball and on Twitter. And we've got the Instagram and stuff like that, but I'm a Twitter guy. I know that more and more kids are doing the Instagram, but at NGU Baseball on Twitter, at Trey Dyson is where you can find us. We got some great stuff on there too if you scroll down. Remember when Dion went to Colorado this year?
Yeah.
Deion Sanders. So
yeah.
we did a whole skit remember what his tagline was?
What was it? I don't remember.
Maybe he was like, I'm coming," and he's bringing his Louis with him,
Oh
his
yeah,
Louis
yeah, yeah,
Vuitton.
yeah.
Yeah. So John Michael Fail, the guy that we talked about, the great hitter that's playing in Billings right now,
Yeah.
he played Coach Prime in a 3-part series that we did. It's unbelievable, but it hasn't gotten much traction in the Twitterverse. But we've also got like a good coach, bad coach series that we did. That's hilarious.
We'll put all those links up in the show notes. We'll put those links up.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. It's great talking to you, Patrick, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate everything that you're doing for the kids and stuff. Um, it's definitely becoming a big business, I guess, the business that you're in. And you guys are really valuable, like as a conduit to a lot of coaches. So keep up the good work, and I look forward to keeping our relationship going in the future.
absolutely. Thanks, man.